Hi, I'm Aldo. Welcome to Plays the Thing, the channel where I share my experiences prepping and playing tabletop role-playing games. So this video, unfortunately, doesn't feature any recent play. Why? Because life happened, and my crew couldn't show up to play Shadowdark a couple of weeks ago. And then life happened again, and I had to cancel the Champions Now game that I would have been running today. So I haven't been actively prepping for any game mastering as of late. We did play Call of Cthulhu last night. My friend ran that, and that was fun. But I'm not, because I didn't prep that session, I don't know that I have anything really to report in terms of play. So I want to take this opportunity to kind of do a little bit of a rerun, which will set me up for things that I'm going to do in the future with play. The reason I say this is a rerun is because I'm going to post a video that I posted a while ago when I tried to make my first run at a YouTube channel, and it didn't really stick, and I changed the name of it. So you're going to see in the video that's going to follow this introduction where I start talking about the Spirit of 88. The Spirit of 88 is a term that we came up with way back in the day, like in the early 2000s, when we felt like we were kind of stuck in a certain rut in terms of gaming. I think I had to do a lot with kind of predetermined play, and we were missing some of the spontaneity that we were used to. At least I was missing some of the spontaneity that I was used to back in the early days of gaming. And we were just like, you know what? One day when we were playing, you know what? We should do it back how we did it back in 1988. And we should just embrace that kind of like, not worrying so much about playing properly in terms of story and whatnot, but just really jump into situations and let things go the way they're going to go. When I came up with that term, the Spirit of 88, I wasn't using the language of situations and whatnot, but I was sort of intuiting certain frustrations that I had with the kind of rut we had fallen into, or the behaviors we had fallen into, and I was trying to harken back to something that was there at an earlier time. So initially I had thought to call this, my YouTube channel, The Spirit of 88, but then after I created this video and I posted some stuff and I did a search for Spirit of 88, and I found out that it's like, that term is at least somewhat connected to like white supremacist groups and stuff. I'm like, nope, no thank you. That's not what I'm interested in doing. So anyway, so no Spirit of 88 in terms of anything that I'll produce publicly here, but I did create this one video that I posted, and it is for a character, it's a character sheet that I created, or that I produced, I should say, for Roll20, and it's to play Supers. So this video is going to focus on the game Supers Revised. Now, Supers Revised is a game that was written by me and my co-writer at the time, Russ Boyd. We were both hired by Hazard Studios to create a revised version of the original game Supers. And that original game was produced by Simon Washburn, written by Simon Washburn, and published through his company, Beyond Belief Games. And you guys might know Simon from his very well-known and highly acclaimed Barbarians of Lemuria, as well as a bunch of other games that he produced. And finally, the other game that I will mention that is Simon's is Triumphant, because Triumphant was his sequel to his original Supers. After he sold Supers to Hazard Studio, he went and produced Triumphant, right? So there's a lot of connected games there that I'm sort of mentioning because I think I should, Supers inspired me in some important ways. And then, Simon's work inspired me in important ways, therefore. And I think it's only fair to talk about where he's taken Supers. And then this tool that I'm about to present in a moment is where Russ and I took Supers on behalf of Hazard Studios, right? and what it meant to me. And look, I'm a co-writer on this thing, but I don't review games on this channel. I really talk about play. That's what I'm interested in. Um, it's what I'm interested in playing and how I go about setting up to play it and all of that. That's the focus of this. So I'm not interested in selling you on supers, but I am interested in sharing the tool that I created to help me play supers online. And I consider that tool um, both prep for my own play and a tool that people can use to prep if they want to play supers, or supers revised, I should say. So, and how does this tie into my own play? Well, currently, I have some ideas kicking around in my head for something that I might want to do with supers in the near future, things that are inspired by Champions Now. Basically, I've been getting in my head that some of the lessons that I've learned from playing Champions Now might be portable over to supers. And so sharing this tool with you is kind of my first step in saying, hey, here's a system that you can play. Here's a tool for playing it. And in a future video, I plan on adding or sharing maybe some house rules that I will bring to that game in order to kind of do this mashup of supers and champions now, right? So, but that's to be determined when I can do that. I have to get a group that is willing to play that, and I have to have time to be able to pull it off myself. So in the meantime, that's a lot of setup for what comes next, which is an old video. You're going to hear Spirit of 88 mentioned. Don't be confused by that. Again, just watch the video, and if you're interested. And yeah, and then, you know, to be continued at a future point in time. Thank you so much.
Hello, fellow tabletop role players. Welcome to the Spirit of 88. I am Aldo, your host, and today I'm going to be introducing you to the Roll20 character sheet that I commissioned for Supers Revised, which is a rules light superhero tabletop role-playing game published by Hazard Studios. Now, the purpose of this tutorial is not to give you an in-depth explanation of how Supers works as a system. However, I will be giving you a brief system primer just so that you know how this character sheet works and what it has to offer you. And in order to walk you through that primer, I'm going to be using Freedom Star, who is an NPC superhero for the superhero setting that I created and self-published called the Superverse. So there are three things that I need to talk about in this tutorial, in this primer, in this system primer. First, we need to talk about attributes. Second, we need to talk about the numbers associated with those attributes. And third, we need to talk about task resolution and how it works in supers. Once you have all those things out of the way, we'll be able to talk about the functionality of the character sheet itself, right? So in order to talk about the first thing, which is attributes, let's go ahead and turn to the character sheet. I'm going to open up here. Here's Freedom Star's character sheet. There's a little image of him back in World War II. And if I click on the character sheet proper, you will see all of the attributes highlighted there, or not highlighted, but with blue headers. They have blue headers that designate them, right? So let's take those one by one. The first one we have on here are resistances. And resistances are attributes that characters can use to resist harm that's coming at them, be that emotional, physical, or mental, right? Attributes are also a resource that depletes over gameplay, right? When they do take damage, it comes off of their resistances. And once any resistance hits 0, the character is incapacitated. Over here, we have initiative. Initiative is in most role-playing games, determines the turn order that you go in a round of combat. And the only other thing to say about initiative in terms of this tutorial is that initiative in this game takes full advantage of the combat tracker that is part of Roll20. The next thing that we have here are aptitudes. Now, Aptitudes are what are called skills in most games, right? They are things that characters can do. And they are things that are relatively mundane in the sense that regular people in the regular world can do them. Now, they may not be able to do them to the dramatic degree or heroic degree that player characters might be able to, but this is the realm of like picking locks, climbing a fence, brain surgery, hacking a computer, things that people in the real world can do, even though our action hero characters or our superheroes will be doing them in far more dramatic ways. All right. Now, the next one that I want to talk about is a little further down on the character sheet, and that is powers, right? And powers are things that characters can do, but these are things that are clearly beyond the ability of normal people to do, right? Mind control people, lift mountains with your mind, right? Shoot eye beams from your eyes, control the weather, things like that, things that are clearly superpowers. That is the realm of powers. Then there are a few other minor things. If we come back up here to the character sheet, you'll see advantages and disadvantages. Advantages are little perks that a character has that don't quite fall under aptitudes or don't quite fall under powers. Sometimes they'll modify how powers and aptitudes can be used. Or modify other aspects of gameplay. And then disadvantages, which are basically situations that may complicate the life of a superhero, right? Neither one of those two things features heavily in this tutorial because those are not rollable attributes. The others are rollable attributes. And then there are competency dice, which are not rollable per se, but they are basically a resource that players can use in order to do kind of extra things, maybe to re-roll a skill roll, or maybe to recover from something, or maybe to use a power in a way that it wasn't intended, or something like that. That's what competency dice are used for. Now that you know what the attributes are and what basically they do, now it's time to talk about the numbers associated with them. And the big takeaway here is that the numbers associated with the various attributes are all a number of D6, right? So when you see that Freedom Star here has composure of 4, that means he has 4d6 in composure. When you see that he has academia of 3, that means he has 3d6 in academia. This rule also extends, if you look here right next to academia, you see that there are a couple of notes on the character sheet here. It says +1 astronomy, -1 everything else. Now, Freedom Star is an astronomer by profession. So what this means is that he has +1 d6 to his academia, and he has, when it deals with astronomy, and he has -1 d6 to his academia whenever he's doing something that's unrelated to astronomy, right? So the big takeaway here is when you see a number on the character sheet, be it a +1, a -1, or just a rating on an attribute, that refers to a number of D6. The first thing I should say is that this is a very basic character sheet. It doesn't offer a lot of automation, or any automation really, in terms of character generation or competency dice expenditure or damage allocation. You kind of have to allocate the damage yourself by just changing the numbers on the character sheet and stuff like that. So you'll definitely need the Supers revised rule book in order to use this sheet effectively, right? Using this system is very, very simple. The math is very, very easy. It's one of the reasons why I like this game so much. At some other point, I'll probably make like a character generation video and maybe a gameplay video to show you how simple it is. But for right now, I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to focus on what this sheet does do, because it does offer a little bit of automation that I think is important for us to look into. And that involves how to use modifiers in the game, and how to do how to do task resolution in the game. Both of those things are automated to a degree that I think is helpful. Let's start with modifiers. Sometimes in Supers Revised, the number of dice that you roll is modified up or down depending on a series of circumstances. We've already seen this with Freedom Star, right? If we go back to his character sheet here and you look at his academia, we know that he gets a +1 when he's doing anything astronomy related. We know he gets a -1d6 whenever he's doing something that's not related to astronomy, right? In addition to situations where you have modifiers that are baked into the character because of the way the character is built, you also have situations where a game master may want to modify the number of dice that you have up or down, depending on circumstances, beneficial or detrimental, that your character may face. So let's work through kind of an example here, right? Let's say that Freedom Star is trying to make sense of some sort of dimensional anomaly that's out in space, some sort of spatial anomaly that's appeared near the moon. And he can observe this anomaly using instruments, using a telescope and other instruments. And it's astronomy related. So we're going to give him a +1 to his roll, right? He has his baseline academia at 3. He's going to get a +1 for his roll, right? Let's say also the game master knows that Freedom Star would have a benefit to making this roll because the anomaly was caused by a villain that Freedom Star has encountered before, right? So that means that Freedom Star should be rolling his academia at +2. 1 for his astronomy, 1 for this extra circumstance, right? If we go over to the sheet, we see that, it's hard for me to do that. I can roll the 3d6, and I'm going to roll it several times here so that you guys can see the results, because I think my head is probably blocking the top of the chat. But there, I dropped a couple of 3d6 rolls, but that doesn't do us any good. Freedom Star should be rolling 5 dice, not 3 dice. So there are a couple of ways of doing this. If you like automation, we have it for you. You can go over here where it says roll modifiers. You can see my cursor hovering over it. Its default is set to off, but you can just turn it on, and you can leave it on for that matter. You can toggle it on and off, of course. And then that means that when I go to roll academia, I roll it. It's going to prompt me with a plus or negative, modifier box here. It's a positive, so I don't need to enter a minus. So I'm just going to put 2, submit, and Freedom Star has now rolled 5 dice. If we hover over here over the result, you can see that he rolled 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 dice, and the result is 13. Right? So that's how you handle modifiers. Now, there's something else that I need to point out here. If you look at the numbers that I rolled here, you see that the total actually come out to 15. But Roll20 dropped the 2 lowest numbers. The reason it did that is because aptitudes in this game work a little differently than all of the other attributes. Aptitudes, because they are mundane, because they cannot achieve superhuman, effect, are capped at a maximum result of 18, right? So the way that works is that if you have Academia 5, you roll 5 dice, right? You drop the 2 lowest, and you'd keep the 3 highest. And that's what Roll20 did for us automatically here. So that's another layer of functionality that I'm mentioning now as an aside, because it exists every time you roll aptitudes. The system just does that for you automatically. All the other attributes don't fall under that rule. That's just for aptitudes, okay? All right, so now that you know how, roll modifier animation works, let's talk about the other big feature offered by this character sheet, which is success automation, right? Now, again, I want to stress, if automation bothers you, you can just work without this and the system will work just fine. The character sheet will work just fine. I know that I have some players in my group that they're like, yeah, I don't need the automation. I just rather do the math in my head. Or you can also go, and I scroll down here on the character sheet, you can go to the success track, which is the way that, a lot of people have been, not a lot of people, everybody's been doing supers since it was published. And it's a great little success track. It works very, very easily if you even need it, because a lot of the times people just do the math in their head, right? So again, if that's you and you're like, bah, I don't want the automation, you can take this sheet, use it, never even think about the automation. But if you are interested in using the automation, this is how it works, right? So again, its default is set to off. So you'll want to turn it on, and you'll see that you have various options. You can click for a non-combat roll. You can click for an offensive attack, for an offensive roll. You can click it for a defense. I'm going to select for query. And what query will do is that it will prompt me with the question of what type of roll it is every time I make a roll. So that way I don't really have to think about it. I just have it a query and it'll automatically give me the option, right? So this is how it works. Let's say that this and we'll use an example to illustrate. let's say that this dimensional anomaly that we were talking about before conjures up an evil version of Freedom Star, maybe plucked him out of some sort of alternate dimension and dropped him into our own. And now Freedom Star is facing off against the evil version of himself, and a fight's going to happen, right? So let's say that first things first. Freedom Star starts talking to this doppelganger. He's like, "Who are you? What's going on?" And he's trying to use his awareness aptitude to get kind of a read on Freedom Star's kind of, the evil Freedom Star's psychology, right? So I hit the thing. It's going to ask, is it non-combat? Yes, it's non-combat. So I'm just going to accept that. And then what's the target number? That's a good question. The game master says the target number is 6 for whatever reason. And then we roll, and here we go. So he rolled an 8 with a target number of 6. That's 1 success. So he gets 1 success. That means he gets 1 piece of information. The GM says, you can tell that he's about to attack you. You can tell that his intent is hostile and he's about to attack you. So that's enough for Freedom Star to kind of get his guard up, and he's not going to suffer any negative modifiers to anything as a consequence of this kind of like surprise attack, right? So now let's say that evil Freedom Star is going to punch good Freedom Star, right? And so we're going to go to his fighting roll. This is an attack. So what kind of roll is it? I'm going to pick offensive, and then I'm going to roll. And bam, I get the result of 11, right? So that's an 11 to punch good Freedom Star. Good Freedom Star is going to block also with his fighting at this point. So that means that he's going to use his fighting, right, to actually tell you what, he's going to try to dodge out of the way. So he's going to use his reaction to dodge out of the way. So here he goes. I'm going to hit his reaction. I'm going to select defense because that's what this is. I'm going to hit submit. And then it's going to ask me for the attack roll, right? And the attack roll is an 11. So I'm going to go ahead and enter that in. I know it's an 11 because that's what evil Freedom Star rolled. And then I'm going to roll that. And then bam, Freedom Star rolled a 12. So he beat his attacker's 11. That means he takes no damage. It spits it out there, 0 damage, right? Now let's say that good Freedom Star is going to attack evil Freedom Star. And this time we're going to go down here to his powers. And this time Freedom Star is going to use his energy control power to create an energy shield that he's then going to use to ram into evil Freedom Star to knock him back and knock some sense into him, right? Now, the reason I wanted to pick this particular attack for this example is because you'll note that if we look at I might need to, let me see if I can make this a little bigger. Yeah, okay, so if we look at the character sheet a little closely here, you see that Freedom Star's energy control has +1 defense, but -1 offense. He's much better at defending with his magic ring, essentially, than he is at attacking with it. It's just something about his psyche. So, but he is going to attack with it, because if he hits with it, it'll give him a little bit more oomph than just his fist. So I'm going to roll his, and here's the thing, I have to account for a modifier now at the same time that I'm also doing this success automation. So this gives me an opportunity to show you how both of these work together. So now I'm going to turn my modifiers on, right? I'm going to roll energy control, right? I'm going to say, well, this is an offensive strike. I'm going to submit it, but it has a -1 modifier. So I'm going to enter a -1, and I'm going to hit submit. And bam, he gets a 17 with the shield strike. Not bad. Evil Freedom Star is going to defend, and he's going to defend also using his shield attack, or his energy control power, which is a function of his freedom ring, or I don't know. I guess I'd have to call it something different for Evil Freedom Star. It wouldn't be freedom ring, but anyway, here we go. We're going to roll for Evil Freedom Star now. This is a defensive option. I'm going to hit submit. He gets +1 because he's defending. Again, if I were to actually write up Evil Freedom Star, I might flip those and say that Evil Freedom Star gets +1 to attack, -1 for defense, but that's another story. We're going to go with these numbers for now. So he gets a +1. He gets +1 for defense. I'm going to hit submit. And now it's asking me for the attack roll, right? Because it's going to do the math of what happens when you use Evil Freedom Star's result on this roll as the target number that Good Freedom Star had to beat, right? So the attack roll is 17. So I'll go ahead and enter that because that's what Good Freedom Star rolled on his attack roll. And then we're going to hit submit. And there you go. Good Freedom Star rolled well enough, right? That he, despite the defensive roll on Evil Freedom Star, he was able to roll well enough. So the shields probably clash. There's like the differing frequencies of energy kind of like spit like energy all over the place, some of which arcs back and hits Evil Freedom Star, and he staggers back in pain and in rage as he takes 1 point off of his resistances, right? So that's how that works. Well, folks, that's almost it, but not quite. There's one little thing that I almost forgot to include here, and that is that obviously you can use this sheet to make player characters or villains, full-blown, antagonists, but you can also use this for other things. If you go over here to the little settings button and you click on that, you can see that you can flip it from character, let's say, to Mook. And the Mook sheet looks different because Mooks and hazards, which basically use the same format, work differently in this game. You can also use the sheet to make vehicles, which look very similar to player characters, admittedly, or headquarters, which look a little bit different from player characters, right? So this version of the sheet offers that functionality so that now you can you can create all the various types of characters and assets that you need to run your Supers revised game. So folks, that's it. That's how this sheet works in all its glory. I hope that you found this video interesting. I hope that you found it helpful. And I want to thank you for tuning in. Creating the sheet was a real labor of love, and it's been going like 2.5, 3 years. I started off by trying to teach myself how to code HTML and that other type of coding that you need to do this kind of work. And I don't have the brain for that. I got the most rudimentary kind of ugly thing going, but it was enough. It was enough to get the attention of a few folks. First of all, I have to thank Alice Peng from Babies with Knives, who shared my efforts with another person who I have to thank, which is Andreas Johansson. And Andreas is a coder who's done work for Roll20, and he had just been introduced to Supers by Alice, and he was like, I like the system, and I think I can help. And he donated his time to make the first version of the sheet. I am so grateful for the contribution that he made to have this solid template going. More than a template, it was a very functional sheet. And then earlier this year, I got a little extra money in my pocket, and so I was able to hire Scott Casey to do the automation and the additional sheets. So I'm very grateful to his work on this sheet. For thanks to his labor, we now have what I think is a really cool sheet. I'm excited to use it in my own games. I hope it'll be useful to some of you. Thank you all for tuning in. Until next time, I wish you happy gaming. Goodbye.
Well, that was it. That was the video of old showing you how to use the character sheet for Roll20 for Supers Revised. In closing, I'd like to say that I'm going to come back next week with a play report. We are likely going to be playing Shadow Dark on Saturday next. So I'll have a play report by Monday. We will either play Midnight Sun or the Gloaming. And then the 5th session of Champions Now has been rescheduled for March 10th. So let's hope that we can pull it off on that Sunday so that I can follow up with more on that game. All right. Well, thank you so much for sticking around to the end if you decided to. As always, I wish you good health. I wish you good cheer, and I wish you good gaming. Goodbye.